I will teach you to be rich. 9 lessons that will change how you think about money. Let's start with a short story. 2 friends graduate college the same year. Same city. Same starting salaries. Same rent. They grab coffee one afternoon and make a half-joking promise to each other. In 10 years, they'll meet back at the same coffee shop and compare notes on how their lives turned out. 10 years later, they meet. The first friend is still living paycheck to paycheck. He's not irresponsible. He doesn't gamble or spend recklessly. He reads financial articles. He worries about money constantly. He's just never actually done anything about it, because every time he tries to figure out where to start, the sheer volume of conflicting advice sends him back to doing nothing. The second friend owns a home, has a growing investment portfolio, and spends money freely on the things he loves without guilt or anxiety. He is not smarter. He did not earn more. He simply spent one weekend, 3 years into their careers, setting up a system that ran automatically from that point forward. He never thought about his finances again. The system did the work for him. The difference between these 2 people is not intelligence, income, or discipline. It is one weekend of setup and the knowledge of exactly what to do during it. Today we will understand that system. 9 lessons. Each one a step. By the end, you will know exactly what to do, in what order, and why, and you will have no excuse left to keep waiting. Lesson 1. Would you rather be sexy or rich? Before Sethi teaches a single financial tactic, he has to clear away the biggest obstacle standing between most people and financial progress: the fact that they're spending enormous energy on the wrong things while convincing themselves they're being responsible. He opens with a comparison that should be uncomfortable for anyone who's ever tracked their daily coffee spending on a spreadsheet. Most people who obsess over small financial details, which app to use, which bank has the best interest rate, whether to invest in this fund or that one, are doing what Sethi calls debating minutiae. They feel busy. They feel responsible. They're not moving forward. Meanwhile, the person who spent 45 minutes setting up an automated transfer to their investment account 3 years ago has been quietly building wealth ever since, without thinking about it once. Sethi's diagnosis is sharp. The personal finance industry profits from keeping you busy with complexity, because complexity sells newsletters, financial advisors, software subscriptions, and endless expert commentary. The more intimidated you feel, the more likely you are to pay someone to help you navigate something that, at its core, isn't complicated at all. His solution is equally sharp. Stop waiting until you understand everything perfectly before you do anything. The single most expensive mistake in personal finance isn't investing in the wrong fund. It's not starting. Every year of delay in beginning to invest costs far more than any fee, any suboptimal fund choice, or any financial mistake you might make along the way. Getting started with something imperfect today is worth more than getting started with something perfect 3 years from now. Lesson 2. Optimize your credit cards. Most personal finance advice treats credit cards as the enemy, something to fear, cut up, and avoid at all costs. Sethi's take is the opposite. Credit cards are one of the most powerful financial tools available to anyone, if you understand how they actually work and refuse to be played by the system built around them. He explains that credit card companies make most of their money from 2 sources: interest charged to people who carry a balance, and fees charged for late payments, over-limit transactions, and annual memberships. People who pay their balance in full every month and never pay a late fee are, in the credit card company's view, the worst kind of customer. They use the rewards, enjoy the consumer protections, and contribute almost nothing to the company's profit margin. Sethi's advice is to become exactly that kind of customer. Pick 1 or 2 cards that align with how you actually spend, whether that's cashback, airline miles, or hotel points. Set up automatic full payments every month so a late fee is structurally impossible. Then call your credit card company and negotiate. Ask them to waive your annual fee, lower your interest rate, or remove a fee that appeared on your bill. He notes that the vast majority of people who call and politely ask for this get it, because retention is valuable to credit card companies, and most customers never ask at all. Most people are leaving free money and free protections on the table simply because they never picked up the phone. Lesson 3. Beat the banks. Banks are not passive institutions that simply hold your money safely until you need it. They are businesses built around extracting fees from their customers, and the average person pays hundreds of dollars a year in charges they barely notice. Overdraft fees, monthly maintenance fees, minimum balance penalties, and ATM charges that silently drain accounts one small transaction at a time. Sethi's strategy for beating the banks is simple and requires almost no ongoing effort once it's done. Stop using banks that charge you for the privilege of keeping your money with them, and move to no-fee online banks that actually pay you a meaningful interest rate on your savings instead of the near-zero rates most traditional brick-and-mortar banks offer as their standard product. He walks through the specific accounts he uses himself: a no-fee online checking account for daily spending and a high-yield online savings account for money being set aside for specific goals like a vacation, a car purchase, or an emergency fund. He opens multiple savings accounts and labels each one for its specific purpose, so that the money sitting in each account feels connected to something real rather than being an undifferentiated pile that's easy to raid for unplanned spending. He's particularly strong on the psychology banks use against their customers. Most people avoid calling their bank to dispute a fee because it feels awkward, confrontational, or unlikely to succeed. Sethi argues this discomfort is exactly what banks count on, and that a 5-minute phone call politely asking for a fee to be reversed is one of the highest return activities in personal finance per minute of effort spent. Banks reverse fees constantly for customers who ask, because the cost of keeping a customer is far lower than the cost of replacing one who leaves. In his experience, the vast majority of people who call and ask get at least a partial reversal on the first attempt, simply because they took the one step most customers never bother to take. Lesson 4. Get ready to invest. Before anyone can invest intelligently, Sethi argues, they need to understand the specific accounts that actually matter and how they relate to each other. The financial world buries this in jargon deliberately, but the underlying structure is straightforward once someone explains it without the unnecessary complexity. The most powerful investment tool available to most working people, Sethi says, is the employer-matched 401k. If your employer offers to match your contributions up to a certain percentage of your salary, contributing at least enough to capture that full match is the closest thing to free money that exists in personal finance. Leaving that match unclaimed is simply declining a portion of your compensation, which almost nobody would do consciously if they thought about it in those terms. After the 401k match, Sethi recommends opening a Roth IRA, an account where you contribute money you've already paid taxes on, and then everything it earns over the decades grows completely tax-free until you withdraw it in retirement. For someone in their 20s or 30s, the long-term tax advantage of a Roth IRA is enormous, since all the compounding that happens over 30 or 40 years is never touched by taxes when it comes time to withdraw, unlike a traditional 401k or IRA where taxes are deferred but not eliminated. The sequence of accounts matters more than most people realize, and Sethi is specific about it. Capture the full 401k employer match first, because that's an instant 50 to 100% return on every dollar contributed up to the match limit. Max the Roth IRA next, since the tax-free growth advantage is most powerful the longer the money has to compound. Then return to contributing more to the 401k if additional money is available after those two priorities are covered. Following that specific sequence, Sethi argues, is worth tens of thousands of dollars over a career compared to investing the same total amount in the wrong order, simply because of how the tax advantages stack and compound differently across different account types over time. Lesson 5. Conscious spending. This is the lesson where Sethi most visibly parts ways with conventional budgeting advice, and it's the one that tends to resonate most strongly with younger readers who've tried traditional budgets and abandoned them within a month. He isn't interested in having you track every dollar, cut every indulgence, and live on as little as possible in the name of financial responsibility. He thinks that approach is both miserable and unnecessary. His framework is called the Conscious Spending Plan, and it's built on a single, deliberately provocative idea. Spend extravagantly on the things you genuinely love, and cut ruthlessly and without guilt on everything else. If you care deeply about travel, spend freely on travel. If you love a great restaurant experience, spend on that without apologizing. If you genuinely don't care about your car, drive the cheapest reliable option available and never think about it again. The goal isn't minimalism. It's alignment between your spending and your actual values, rather than the vague drift that causes most people to spend significant money on things they don't particularly care about while feeling guilty about the things they do. He divides spending into 4 categories and suggests rough percentages. Fixed costs like rent and utilities around 50 to 60%, investments around 10%, savings for specific goals around 5 to 10%, and guilt-free spending money for everything you enjoy around 20 to 35%. The numbers are starting points, not rigid rules. What matters is that you've consciously decided what your priorities are rather than letting them be decided for you by inertia. Lesson 6. Save while sleeping. Automate everything. This is the lesson Sethi considers the most important in the entire book, and it's the one most people either skip or underestimate because it sounds too simple to be transformative. His central argument is that willpower is a terrible financial strategy. Every financial system that depends on you making a good decision every month will eventually fail, because months get busy, motivation fluctuates, and one missed contribution leads to two and then to none. The solution is automation. Set up your financial system so that the right things happen every month without requiring any decision from you at all. On the day your paycheck hits your checking account, an automated transfer moves your investment contribution directly to your Roth IRA. Another automated transfer moves your savings portion directly to your high-yield savings account. Your credit card balance is automatically paid in full. Your 401k contribution is already deducted before you ever see your paycheck. Once the system is running, you literally cannot make a bad financial decision because the important decisions have already been made and encoded into a set of automatic transfers that require no monthly thought or willpower to execute. Sethi describes this as the difference between a diet that depends on resisting temptation every single day and a diet that removes the tempting food from your house entirely. One depends on constant vigilance. The other wins by design. Automation is the design that wins, quietly and persistently, every month for decades, compounding into something enormous while you're busy living your actual life. Lesson 7. The Myth of Financial Expertise. Sethi devotes an entire chapter to dismantling one of the most persistent and expensive myths in personal finance. The idea that professional financial advisors and actively managed funds, because they're staffed by smart, experienced, well-paid professionals, must be able to outperform a simple index fund that any ordinary person can buy in minutes. The data, he argues, says otherwise, and it says so consistently and conclusively across decades of research. The vast majority of actively managed funds underperform their benchmark index over any 10-year period. Not because the fund managers aren't intelligent or well-resourced, but because consistently predicting the market better than the collective intelligence of every other market participant, year after year, is essentially impossible to sustain over long time horizons. And every time an active manager tries, they charge management fees, trading costs, and expense ratios that eat directly into your returns whether or not their performance ever justifies those charges. Sethi's alternative is aggressively boring and aggressively effective. Buy low-cost index funds, ideally through a target-date retirement fund that automatically adjusts its allocation between stocks and bonds as you get closer to retirement age, contribute to it consistently regardless of what the market is doing in any given month, and then stop paying attention to market fluctuations entirely. Don't try to pick winning individual stocks. Don't follow financial news looking for the next hot sector to rotate into. Don't pay someone a management fee to do those things on your behalf. The boring strategy of buying the whole market cheaply and holding it forever has consistently beaten the exciting strategy of trying to outsmart it, decade after decade, across virtually every rigorous study that has examined the question without a financial conflict of interest influencing the conclusion. Lesson 8. Investing isn't only for rich people. One of the most common reasons people delay starting to invest is a belief that investing is something you do after you've accumulated a significant amount of money, not something you start with a small, imperfect amount right now. Sethi spends this chapter systematically dismantling that belief, because he considers the delay it causes to be one of the most financially damaging habits any young person can develop. Sethi makes the math viscerally clear using an example that stops people cold when they actually run the numbers. Someone who invests a modest amount every month starting at 25 and stops entirely at 35, investing for only 10 years total, will likely end up with more money at retirement than someone who invests the exact same monthly amount from 35 all the way to 65, investing for 30 years straight. The first person invested for 10 years. The second invested for 30. Yet the first person wins, purely because their money had an extra decade of compounding to work with before anyone touched it. This is one of the most counterintuitive results in all of personal finance, and Sethi uses it deliberately to shatter the common belief that starting small is somehow not worth it, or that waiting until you have more money to invest makes financial sense. Time in the market is worth more than the amount being invested, which means the worst possible financial decision is the one you kept postponing until you felt more confident, more financially stable, or more certain about which fund to choose. His practical advice is direct. Start with whatever you have right now, even if the amount feels embarrassingly small. An automated monthly investment of $50, started today and left alone, is worth more in the long run than a perfectly optimized plan to invest $500 per month as soon as your finances are sorted out, because as soon as has a well-documented tendency in human psychology to mean never. The amount you start with matters far less than simply starting. Lesson 9. Easy Maintenance and a Rich Life. The final 2 chapters of the book do something unusual for a personal finance guide. They tell you to stop paying attention to your money once your system is set up, and they address what happens when money starts intersecting with the most emotionally complicated parts of your life. On maintenance, Sethi is explicit that a well-designed automated financial system requires almost no ongoing attention. He recommends checking in once a month to make sure automated transfers went through correctly, and rebalancing your investment portfolio once a year if needed. Everything else, the daily market fluctuations, the financial news cycles, the predictions about where the economy is heading, is noise that serves no useful purpose for an individual long-term investor and only creates anxiety that tempts people into bad decisions. On a Rich Life, Sethi's final chapter tackles money's role in relationships, major purchases like cars and homes, and the emotional weight that comes when money becomes a source of conflict with partners or family members. His core principle throughout is that money is a tool for designing a life you actually want, not a scoreboard, not a source of identity, and not a reason to defer the experiences and relationships that matter most to you. A rich life, in his framework, is specific and personal. It looks different for every person who builds one. The goal of everything in the previous 8 chapters, the automated systems, the Roth IRA, the conscious spending plan, is to get the money sorted out quickly and completely so that you can stop thinking about it and get on with actually living. So if you take one thing from this video, take this. Being rich isn't complicated. It isn't reserved for people who understand every nuance of financial markets or who have a finance degree or who started with a trust fund. It requires a few smart decisions made once, automated so they happen without your involvement, and then left alone long enough for compounding to do what it does best. Ramit Sethi didn't write this book for people who love spreadsheets. He wrote it for the person who keeps meaning to figure out their finances and has been meaning to for 3 years already. His message is direct. Stop meaning to. Set it up this week. Then go live your life. Which of these 9 lessons is the one you needed to hear most? Let me know in the comments.